Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Have you ever wondered what games you should sell or you should use? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Find out on our top 10 list what games you cannot miss. Don't forget to subscribe to Purge
The Opulent. Now this is a Kickstarter game that's cooperative where you're going to be running a nightclub in the 1920s. What's particularly interesting about this game is that the game really should be played in a campaign mode. It's almost like a Pandemic Legacy, except for you're not ripping things up or changing the board forever, but you are getting upgrades and staff that will follow you throughout the campaign. So sure, if you want to say a legacy game is a game that you rip up and you only play really one time, although there might be 20 plays in it, then this isn't a legacy game. This is a campaign game. But it's a very fine line between campaign and legacy. And that's a conversation for another day. But what you get here in the Opulent is you're going to get a campaign game where you're going to be running a nightclub in the 1920s. You're going to see historical events occurring. You're going to have staff and patrons and mobsters that you're going to have to deal with. Because remember, alcohol is illegal. We're under prohibition here. Let's take a look at how the game plays. When I get back, I'll give you my thoughts on it. Here's the Opulent. This is a nice Kickstarter box. I mean, the box is just beautiful. We're going to take a look inside. You're going to get a rule book. I mean, this rule book is pretty long, and I wish there were some more player aids, which there are inside, but I mean, this thing has a lot of text. It's broken up into each of the 4 different little mini games that you'll be playing, and then at the back, you're going to get the instructions for how you play the campaign, and you're going to have an explanation of the cards in the back. So, and then a little cheat sheet reference. It's a pretty good rule book, but it's much longer, I feel like, than this game needs to be, but it does cover everything, so good job with that. You're going to get some cardboard for each, these are really nice, for each of the locations. You can see the artwork on them are very thematic. Great job with these. Now I put these in my own containers. This is going to be the money. It's okay. It's just like little wooden nickels. In this one, you're going to get all the little bits and dice, and the fruit looks like fruit, and the alcohol looks like alcohol, which is really cool. And you'll see more of this in the playthrough. You're going to get some black die. I set this aside because this is what the Doorman is going to get. As you can see, the insert really has no dramatic insert in here. It's just a regular case. You're going to get the player aids. Each one will go for the different locations or mini games to the players. They'll be able to use this as a cheat sheet reference. And then you're just going to get a bunch of cards. I'll show you how all these work. These are the mini cards for the music locations. The rest of these are full size that you'll be using throughout the game. And I'll show you how these work in the playthrough. I'm going to go over a few things you're going to do generically in each game. So you're going to pick out where you're going to have your liquor license with, either with the Italians or with the Irish. And they'll change the restocking fees a little bit, and some bad things will happen if the opposite game comes into your bar. But there are more Irish in the deck than Italian, so take that into play, although you never know exactly what's going to be in your deck. So you'll do this, you'll be able to change this throughout the game. But the game also has these historical. So you see here it says 1923, 1924. So depending on what year and scenario in, you'll have these different real-life things that can happen. Gatsby hits the shelves, Capone under fire, or How Sweet the Sound. So these will just kind of make it, put one historical card in each year that you play through the campaign. Here are the staff upgrade cards. As you can see, there's different little staff members you can hire. They will cost you ongoing. And as your Opulent, as your building gets more and more prestige, you'll be able to hire these people to kind of help out. And they'll help you break the rules and do fun stuff. This is more used in the campaign mode. Here are the club upgrades. For each year, you'll choose one that you'll be able to play through. And once again, these will be able to break the rules and do some fun stuff. And as the game gets harder, we'll make the game hopefully easier. A little cost to do this. You'll be trying to earn this plus however much money you're trying to earn for the turn. And if you go through the campaign, other than the first year, you'll be able to pick which one of these you want to go after. So it can totally meet your play style. Absolutely. I'm going to explain how each of the mini games work. I'm going to start with the Doorman here. The Doorman will have a set of celebrities. You will have these celebrity cards, and each one will have a star depending on what this prestige is, and they're 1 through 5. And these will be VIPs that come inside your club. and they will have to be dealt with in a certain way. On the back of each celebrity card and patron card, you have a nice individual bio for this character. It's a nice little piece that they put into the game. So when you start out, you will not be dealing with these, but these guys may come into your building at some point, and you just have to deal with them. There's some special rules that go with them, but we're going to set those aside for now. For the most part, you're going to be dealing with patrons, just regular old customers. Some will be politicians. You have aristocrats. You have more aristocrats, more aristocrats. You have mobsters that come in. They'll always be signified by their color and the wording at the bottom. And you have so many of these. There's just tons of these in the game. Now, each time you'll have a different amount. So I'm just going to pick out a bunch and just kind of show you how it goes. So you'll have your draw deck here. And then what you will do is through mechanisms in the game, and I'll show you how that works when we get to the manager, you will have a number of these out. Let's say when we start this out that we have 5. 5 is the max you can ever have. You could also have as many as 5 more in the overflow. If there's ever more in the overflow, if you had to add, you already had 5 out and 5 in the overflow, then you would just discard that person from the game and you would not be able to score any points for them. In a perfect world, each of your guys' lines will start out with 3 wooden nickels on them, and then your line here will have 2. The 2 represent here is just as a reminder that when the guy comes out from the overflow and they add up to this list, they will always come out with 2 instead of the normal 3. Playing the doorman is perhaps the easiest character or mini game in the game to play. For the most part, you will roll these die. Now, you have a few different things you can have. Each of these die will have a color. So if you wanted to put a blue, you'd have to put that on a blue character. A green on a green character. The brown does nothing for the doorman. That's only used in the bar. This white, or this yellow, is a wild card. It can be put on any character you want. Now I want to illustrate something to you. There's also a purple side, and it requires 2 purples in order to be a wild card. So then you could put this wild card on the screen if I had rolled that. If I didn't roll something I wanted, and I wanted to do a reroll, I can. I would just discard one of the dice and then re-roll the other ones that I had. So I'm going to kind of show you a little bit how this might work because I want to illustrate this. So because I have a green here, that's great. That one will move on. I'll show you how that works. The wild card will move on. Now when you use a yellow wild, so if I use this green to go out, normally it'd come back in my repertoire for next time to roll again. With the wild cards, when I send this guy out, this die will stay with him until he leaves the pub. So wild cards can be handy, but they can also be detrimental because next turn I'll have less die to roll. Now if I skip over this guy, this lady right here, I would have to give up a nickel and a discard to skip her, and then this person would be ready to go to where they would go. Now let me show you here on the cards. Each of the cards are going to have an arrow. If it's to the right, your right, then they will go to the dance floor. If it's to the left of the card, they will go to the bar first, okay? If it's colored in, you can see the coloration. So this first one will go to the bar. This guy will go to the bar. This one was skipped. And this one just happens to go to the bar also. After these are gone and go, these 2 wilds that were purple, they don't stay with them. They can come off and be used next round. Everybody who's left loses a nickel, okay? If you have no nickels, then you're discarded, and I won't be able to score that person for this round. And everybody scoots in up to 5. And then I will put nickels on these people, and the door will be gone. One other thing of note are the regulars, and we see a regular here. The interesting thing about the regulars, they all have their unique roles, but for the most part, if they ever get to the front of the line, they immediately go into their location. You don't need a die to send them anywhere. And there's a special one that if he gets to the second spot, he goes in. But that's how the doorman will play. So he's just playing this little Yahtzee game where he's rolling the dice and matching the colors. Now, before he rolls, he does have one thing he can do. Before he rolls the dice, he can schmooze, which means give up a die, and then he can add nickels to the people that are in the line. And that's a great way if you're getting crowded up here, if you're getting to a point where people might lose all their nickels and then they're out of the pub, is to keep them in there by adding nickels. Let me start off by saying the band is the most difficult mini game to play in the Opulent. You have your patrons set up. We have one with the wild card, just to illustrate that the wild card will stay with the die will stay with the person until they leave the club. I have the 4 stacks here of the different types. We got woodwinds, brass, strings, and percussion. And we always have 2 music notes out. 2 sheets of music out at a time. Now the first thing you'll do is you'll add anybody to this that you need. The second thing you'll do is you'll draw cards. And now you can draw 4 cards on a turn, but you can't draw more than 3 from the same stack. If you draw 1 from each stack, you can add 2 nickels to the people dancing. After I draw my cards and add my nickels, I can then begin to make the decision that I want to make for the turn. I can do one of 3 things. I can play a song for the tempo. The way this works in the Opulent, that you're going to have either a key signature of A or an E. If I'm playing to match this, I want to play as many in the E as possible. For every A I play, then I will lose 1 nickel off one of the people dancing. So what I'm trying to do here is match this 5, the number on top. For everyone that matches the number on top, I can have somebody leave and be happy and head out to their next location, either out of the club or to the bar. So using the cards in my hand, I will be able to give up these notes. If they're E, they're A, I have to pay a penalty, and I will try to do so in counts of 5. The easiest way for me to show you is by using the handy guide here. A whole note is 4 beats. You have a quarter note for 1, a half note for 2, and a half beat for an eighth note for 1/2 of a beat. And you will use these to count up to the 5. So in this case, I have 1/2, I have 1.5, 2.5, I have 4.5. Not quite enough to get the 5, so I probably wouldn't play any of those cards to get anybody out because I wouldn't be able to. Let's say I would have had this card on my hand. This would be a 4, and I would try to maybe get this 5, and I could get somebody to leave. So I would play these down, discard those, and I would take this person to the next location. Now I can play as many cards as I can as long as they equal up into 5s. Let's say I would have played an 11. Just because of the way the cards played, I would have had 11. That's fine. I could get 2 people out, but somebody would lose a nickel, and that's how that would work. The other option I have is to play a melody, and this is going to allow nickels to be added to people. So I'm going to be looking at this right here, and it's on the second line. So I will be trying to play cards that match that melody. So this one wouldn't do me any good. This one would. And as I play cards that match that melody, I'll be allowed to add wooden nickels to the top here. I do have to stress that knowing the distributions that's going on here, understanding these concepts is going to be important to you being able to figure out how to play this. Once again, you're going to want to put your most experienced gamer here. Once you get it down a couple times, it's really not that difficult, but it is something that you want to focus on and getting these guys out of here. Now, if the cards, in this case, have an arrow to the left, I know they went to the bar first. So if there's a dance club, because this is empty, I know they're ready to leave and will then be sent to the manager. If the opposite was true, and I know he went to the dance floor first, I would then send him over to the bar. That's where this guy is going. The next stop we have is the bartender, and this is probably the second most difficult one to play. The unique thing about the bartender is you can have as many people lined up as the bar as you want, because the bartender is all about trying to give people as many drinks as possible and juggling that aspect of the game. What you're going to get is you're going to get 3 dice, 6-sided die. You're going to get one of the die that looks like the Doorman die. And throughout the game, you're going to have a number of ingredients. You're going to have the whiskey, you're going to have the beer, the fruit, the ice. If the game portrays it, you'll have some specials that might come out. But I'm going to kind of keep it simple right here. The first thing you're going to do as a bartender is put all the patrons up here that are being moved here. And you'll probably do that as the doorman does it. Some of this can be done simultaneously. Now, as the bartender, you now have a decision to make because you have this many dice to roll. But you might need to give up some die. If your resources are running low, you'll give up some die to fill up your resources. Looking at this handy dandy chart is probably the easiest way. So these all cost 1 die. If you refill your ice, you go back up to your maximum. You can refill your fruit. You can refill your beer or liquor. But remember, that costs money to get the alcohol based on your agreement with the Irish or the Italians. And then you could schmooze which is put $1 on 2 patrons or $2 on 1 patron. So you can always give up a die to do that. Now what you're going to do with these resources is each type of patron wants a different type of drink. And once again, our handy dandy reference will take care of that. Mobsters, they just want a beer. Politicians, they want alcohol and ice. Aristocrats want alcohol, fruits, and ice. If you have any celebrities, you have to take care of them also. So one thing you'll do is you decide who you want to serve. And you'll go ahead and put whatever resources are required, assuming that you have it, available, and you go ahead and put that out on the ones that you want to try to serve. And let's say we're going to try to serve all of these guys. I would roll my dice, and I would count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you know what the difficulty is because how many pieces it took for you to put on there. So a beer is 1, alcohol and fruit is 2, and you just add them all together. In this case, it's 8. So I'd roll these dice, and I roll 9, 10, 11, 12. So I know that I've successfully got a drink for all of these. But let's say I would have drawn all 1s. Or this, 3, 4, 5, but I needed 8. Then I would decide whose stuff I want to put back. Maybe I put this aristocrat back because that would allow me to serve everybody else, right? So then what I would do is I would take 1 nickel off of him because I was unable to serve him. And then everybody who was served, I'll just kind of push them up just for our visual purposes. All of these people were served drinks. I would discard the ingredients I used to serve them, including the ingredients of the drink that I did not serve. That's represented by me dropping the drink right in front of him. And I would discard all this, perhaps making it next time that I'll need to give up some of my dice to get more items. These people then move on into the manager's room or the dance room, depending on where their needs are. Anybody who wasn't served a drink loses a nickel. And in this case, he lost enough that he will leave the pub unhappy, never giving us another dime. So these guys would all move on to their next location. Keeping in mind that you have the next step, which is rolling the dice. Then you roll this dice and you look at the number. It's blue. Well, I did have a blue. So this guy decided that the drinks were so good, he's going to stay around for another round. So these guys would go off to their next location. This guy's going to stick around because I had rolled a blue. If I had rolled a red, all 3 of those would have stayed around and this guy would have taken off. Now if you decide to stick around for another round, you don't lose the nickel like I showed you before, but he will stick around. I have to deal with him again next round. So this place can get very, very, very crowded, very hectic, but this is a really fun little area to take and to manage. The last little mini game we have is the manager's room. This is going to be the person that's making a lot of managerial decisions. And one would think that you want your best player to be here, but I think that band room is so complicated. But this is the person that really needs to understand the game if you're going to play 4-player. Otherwise, the person who's read the rule books and knows what's going on a lot, there's going to be some hard decisions. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take the event deck and you're going to turn over the top card and you're going to do whatever it says. In this place, it's extortion. You have 2 choices. Remove $5 from your club coffers, which means it's setting you back. Or discard all resources at the bar. Discard 10 cards from each band deck, and Doorman uses 2 dice on the next turn. So it can be very brutal. Some of these will be very, very bad. Sound investment. William York is impressed with club operations. Increases his investment. Receive $5 if William's in the club. And you'll see that a lot. Some of these will be very, very specific. Band may not pull from strings for 2 turns unless you own new band instruments. That's an upgrade that you will have. You will also have these prohibition agents that will come in, and they can totally wipe out your entire coffers. These are very dangerous. And you'll have lookout cards in here that you can use to block some of those, but they will cost you money each round. At the bottom of the hats, it shows you how many people the Doorman is going to let in next time, how many people are going to be drawn from the Doorman deck, the patron deck. So if you look at the bottom here, it's always a different amount. So this can be very crazy for the Doorman to have to juggle all these people. Now, they're not necessarily coming into the bar, but they're coming into the line or maybe the overflow. So that can be very powerful. And these cards can really stick it to you. Now, the rest of what the manager is going to do is he's going to make a couple decisions here. He can do a few things that he can do. Now, I've zoomed in here to show you what some of the options are. You can read them with me, and I'm going to explain them a little bit. You can use help with the door. So the first thing he can do is kind of help all of the stations. So he can help with the door by using 2 Doorman dice. That might be a good way to get some people in. You can also help at the bar by using 1 of the bar dice. That's a great way to get some extra refreshments and reinforcements with the fruit and the ice and stuff that you need can be very helpful. The VIP room, that helps with if you have any celebrities inside. You can move one client or from the VIP station. You can also pamper somebody, add a wooden nickel to a celebrity. That's going to help you out there. You can also comp a drink. If somebody's becoming a problem, you can comp them a drink, immediately escort them at the bar, and this will cost you $1 from your coffers. That's a way to get somebody kind of moving if things are stacking up and you're going to lose people. Because like at the dance club, you can only have 5 people, right? You can also schmooze. This is what I like a lot. You can add $1 to 2 people or $2 on 1 person. You can also change your liquor license. If you're not happy with the Irish, go with the Italians. You can also request a song by getting rid of a song. If you're like, man, I just don't have the cards to get that song, and the second one in line looks good, you can totally do that. You can also hire a lookout. If you've drawn a lookout card, you can hire them for $2. And you can also do your upgrade. So a lot of times when you're playing, you're going to have an objective of trying to get an upgrade. You can spend that money to do it. So that's kind of how the manager is going to work. He's going to have 2 options. He's going to draw the event deck and take care of it. He's going to take 2 of those managerial actions. These things can be the difference between you winning and losing. So the managerial, while his decisions sometimes can be pretty straightforward and his decisions can be fairly obvious what needs to be done, they are important. And you're going to have a lot of balls to juggle, and deciding which one works best for you guys to win is a tough decision. So the Opulent has you running this nightclub, and you can play it as a single serving little game here and there. But this game is really intended to be played over a campaign. If you want to really play this game, and before you say I don't like it, you need to have played the campaign. So the Opulent has you running a nightclub. The game is set up really with 2 modes. A single mode where I'm going to sit down and just play one self-contained game, and a second mode where you're playing through the campaign. In my humble opinion, I feel like the campaign is the real game. And they kind of latched on this single experience, so if you just wanted to play one and out, you can. And there's some ways to make it more challenging, and difficulty can be up or down depending on your playing style. But what you get here is 1920s Prohibition, and we're running this club. After each game, depending on whether you won, lost, or how you did, you can then have upgrades to your nightclub, or you can hire different staff. You can hire 1 staff per term. You will also be getting prestige based on these upgrades that will bring celebrities in, and those are VIPs that you have to deal with on their own. Very interesting and fascinating. And the better you get at this game, the difficulty is going to be ratcheted up. Now, I think the elephant in the room to me was the first time I played this game, I was a little off-put by it. It didn't go very well. I played on the Dice Tower Cruise. It just wasn't a very good experience. I didn't know the rules that well, and it just kind of bombed. And then I went back to it over and over again, and I liked it but didn't love it. But when I started playing through the campaign, and that became my focus, I really, really like this game. The first scenario in 1920 is very easy. You're going to hear that from a lot of people about how easy this game is. But as the game ratchets up, I feel like the difficulty kind of builds as you go through the years. I should say first off, before we dive into the different areas of the game, that this game is devised of 4 mini games. 1 player can play the doorman, 1 player will be playing the bartender, 1 will be kind of negotiating the band and the dance floor, and the last one will be the manager. I recommend this game as a 1 or 2 player game. I don't think anybody wants to be just the doorman. If you're going to play this game with 4, that person has to be a pretty non-gamer or somebody who's just fine, not doing very much, because the doorman isn't going to do very much. If you're going to play 3 players, if somebody will be the manager, and I think somebody will have to play the doorman, also probably the manager. That gives them a little bit more to do. With that said, the manager's decisions, while will have the most conversation, I think they can be played by somebody doing something else. So here's how I would recommend playing the game. Either solo, and you're playing all 4, which is probably the strongest way to play this game if you ask me, or divvy up the bartender and the band. 1 person will be the band, and 1 person will be the bartender. Let the person doing the band be the doorman, because the band is probably the most complicated one to be, and the doorman is probably the easiest. And then have the bartender be the manager, because the manager has a little bit more to do than a doorman, but it has some really important decisions to be made, where the bartender, not so much. Now, I think there's an argument for that to be divvied up differently, where it goes, the bartender would play the doorman, because then the doorman goes first, then the band, then the bartender, then the manager. But I think that for the sake of the game that the doorman and the band would be the same, and the bartender and the manager. I think that works best. Putting that aside, let's talk about those mini games, because you can't talk about this game as a whole without talking about the mini games. The doorman. The doorman is a very easy person to play. You're going to have really one decision. Am I going to put more wooden tokens by giving up a dice? And you roll the dice and you pretty much do what it says. It's almost like playing King of Tokyo or a Yahtzee style mechanic, and you're trying to match up the colors. If you roll good, well, all the people are coming in and you're good to go. A little bit of management there, but not a whole lot to it. It's probably the weakest of the 4 mini games. Next, your people will go to either from the door to the band or the bartender. Now, I'm going to start with the band, because that's who would go next in turn order. The band is probably the most complicated one to play. There's 3 things you can do that really dive down to 2. You can get people dancing and off the floor, or you can play a melody and get more wooden money on them. So if they're running low on money, you don't want them to leave without spending a lot of money when they leave, so you need to put more wooden nickels on them. So that's probably the most complicated one, because you're actually playing almost like an instrument. You don't have to know anything about instruments or how to read sheet music, but you will learn a little bit by playing this part. And this is probably the most fun one to play. You kind of do something, but at the end of the day, you're just playing the cards that you have. And there's a lot of little rules that go into it. So the gamer of the group, I would say, put on the band. That's the guy that you want there. Next is the bartender. Now this one is really kind of like a management of your resources type thing. Who am I going to serve? And if you're going to serve all of them, then you'll be rolling the dice to see if you were able to do that. And there's a little bit of management here. There's some regulars that can come in that can kind of dive the place up. But for the most part, you're going to be seeking out those resources, giving up dice to get more resources, and then rolling the dice to see if you were successful. This one's probably the second hardest of the group. And lastly, you have the manager. The manager making some big overarching decisions. He will take care of the events that come out. And those are just kind of random. They are what they are. But the manager will have a number of actions that he can take. He can make things easier on the bartender, the band, the doorman. Or you take some global things, just putting some wooden nickels on some people, or taking care of some VIPs, or giving somebody a free drink maybe if they're clogging things up. So the manager will be making these overarching decisions. Now, if you're putting your gamer at the band, I think maybe you could make an argument for the guy running the game would be at the manager, because he can help other people if he's teaching it. I also think these decisions are really, really important to be made. So putting somebody there that kind of knows what they're doing, and maybe just having everybody talk about the manager actions and what you guys need to have done. Because the bartender's going to be like, get me more stuff. And the band's going to like, get this card out of here because I need to play a different song. And the doorman's like, we got to get these people out. So everybody's going to be yelling about things. And the manager's going to have to calmly make those decisions. So overall, I didn't like the Opulent that much when I first started playing it. One of the problems I had with it is that it's a lot of luck. Each of the mini games has a lot of luck, and you're rolling dice. Also, the game felt very easy. When I was just playing the singular ones, very, very hard. But as you progress through the campaign, the game kind of ratchets up the difficulty. Now, I think some of the difficulty that it ratchets up perhaps is a little fake. It's difficult just to be difficult. So there is one where you have to use double the alcohol on everybody for reasons, because there's somebody and you have to get clues. That's a little bit hard. And you have these one where there's a competitor, so you have to do like the hard way versus the easy way, which if you do it the easy way, it's easier, but you're losing patrons out of the patron deck. It's very hard, but it does change things up a little bit, which is appreciated, okay? And so if you feel like that things are getting really, really difficult, this may be a way to take care of it. Try to play some of the ones in further along in the decade, and I think you will find the game a little bit more challenging. Now, this isn't going to be Ghost Stories. This isn't intended to be like the hardest cooperative game in your collection. It's a little lighter affair. The game is really just 4 mini games, really 2 mini games. The Doorman, I guess, is a light mini game, and the managerial one, you're just making a couple decisions. But the package together, you know, it's kind of in line with Castle Panic, maybe a little bit harder than that on some of the boards, but that's kind of the level that you're at. The game is a little bit hard to teach because everybody is doing something different. So, you know, if you have somebody who was a noob, you might want to put them at the door. If you have a really good gamer, maybe put them at the band or the bartender, so you can kind of mix it up a little bit, but you don't want to be with 4 gamers on this game. There's just not enough to do. It's not going to keep your interest that long. But this is a fantastic solo game. This is probably one of my favorite solo games to play now. And if you're a solo gamer, this is what I'm going to immediately tell you to check out. It's amazing. Yes, you're playing 4 roles in the game, but it's different because not a lot of tracking. It's very easy to kind of keep the spreadsheet, the matrix of the game in front of you. It's not like playing 4 different characters. We have all these hands of cards you're dealing with. It's fairly easy and manageable to play all 4 roles because the doorman and the manager really aren't doing very much, to be honest. So it's really just a bandit and the bartender, and it's not a whole lot to manage. You can definitely do it. If you add in a second player, I think you got somebody helping you make decisions, but the game isn't really that complicated, to be honest. But it does make it a very good solo experience. So where do I sit on the Opulent? I think if you're looking for it as a 3 or 4 player game, I think you're going to have better options. As a solo, I think this is a must buy. As a 2 player game, I think you can have a lot of fun at it. But just understand that decisions are lighter, there's some dice rolling that are involved, and some things are going to happen out of your control. Now the book, the rule book, kind of says, well, that's how it is running. It's thematic, you know, that's how it is running a nightclub like this. Yes, but there are some prohibition cards in the event deck that come up and you lose all your money. And money is what you're doing here, right? And you know, you need to get $60, 30 for your upgrade, you need 30 extra dollars to get past the board, plus you want a little left over to get a staff. So let's say you're getting $70. I got to the point where I got $60 saved up and I was about to win, and an agent came and he stole all my money. Yes, the round before I could have hired a lookout, and the lookouts prevent the probationary agents to come. So 2 things could have happened here. 1, I could have spent the $2 to get the lookout, but I wouldn't have won anyway, right? Second thing is, what if I hadn't got that lookout? So the raid cards are just, oh my gosh, it's not that bad if it comes out early, but there's times where I'm winning this by the skin of my teeth, just because there's only so many cards that are coming out. I like that, but I'm not crazy about those raid cards. I don't know how I feel about that. Otherwise, I think it's a really solid game. Check this one out, the Opulent. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you liked it, please like it and hit that little subscribe button. That really helps out the channel, lets us know that you're getting the videos that you want. If you agreed or disagree with what I said, feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and I promise that I will comment back. Thanks for watching, and everybody else,